Hey guys, just wanted to record a fresh video on parameters and formulas within Ressio. So parameters and formulas work in tandem, very similar to how formulas work in a platform like Excel. And in Ressio, we can use parameters and formulas to update and inform our quantity field here. So parameters are essentially creating the workflow, saying, or creating the parameter, essentially saying, hey, this is going to be square footage or concrete pad or wall height or things like that, essentially creating the data that we then use within formulas. And so for this example here, I've got my edit parameters button, which is the equal sign here. This at the top bar is where I set my parameters for this project, and these can be part of templates that you use as well. So if I come in here and click edit parameters, you'll see I've got a bunch of different parameters that have been set up. I've got concrete pad width, length, height, living space square footage, total home square footage, total wall area, total wall length. And we can use these different parameters to then build formulas. And we can always add in more parameters. We can change these. That's kind of the whole point. But in this instance, I'm going to create a couple of simple examples to start from here. So really easy one is just pure square footage based takeoff. So what I could do in here is I could come in and say, hey, this is my permits and fees. And I'll add an item in here and we'll say, so maybe we want to do an occupancy permit, and we know that that's going to be $1.32, and we can build these unit costs out from our cost catalog as well, which is always nice. And then for the quantity, I want to base this on the total living space of the house. So what I can do is I can just hit the equal sign here, which brings up my formula edit, and I can say simply living space square footage. That's going to calculate based off of that parameter. And I will update that formula, and now it automatically calculates the quantity for me. You'll see that if I go into edit my parameters and I change the living space of the home to maybe 4,500 square feet and update parameters, that's going to update on all of the different formulas that reference that parameter. And so this is the really powerful thing of using parameters and formulas for takeoff or square footage based takeoff, is that you could build literally an entire estimate where the quantity of every line is based on the living square footage or the total square footage or the difference between the two for that property. And you can add different square footages in there as well, of like garage and basement and second floor versus first floor. And you can do an entire takeoff right from those numbers simply by saying, hey, these are the square footages. I know that my average cost per square foot or price per square foot is X and Y, and then do that entire square footage based takeoff just like you can in a traditional takeoff system. And then from here, you can still take these and bid them out and make modifications. You're not locked into these numbers, but they can be used as a great starting point. You can change prices. You can change quantities as well. You're not locked in. And then we can do a lot of other great, more complicated stuff as well. So a good example I've got here is a concrete pad, and I want to do the concrete volume and convert square footage into cubic yards as a good example here. And so in this example, I'm going to do my concrete pad width multiplied by my concrete pad height or length multiplied by my concrete pad height, which will give me the total area. And I'm going to add parentheses on here. So that's going to give me a total area of 50 cubic feet. And then I'm going to divide that by 27, which is going to give me the total cubic yards, which in this instance is 1.85 cubic yards. And then if I wanted to, I can add some extra parentheses in here. It's always parentheses with these. And I can actually do a round up to the nearest whole number. And in this instance, it's going to round me up to 2. So in this case, I've said, hey, I want to do the total cubic yardage of my concrete pad, a very small concrete pad because it's only a quarter, 3 inches thick. and it's I can't remember what the parameters are. But this is going to give me that in cubic yards. And then from there, I'm going to round up to the nearest whole number. Well, maybe I didn't want to do that right away. Maybe I wanted to round up after I took that whole thing and then multiplied by 1.1 to add in some extra parentheses. And so I'm going to take that whole thing and multiply by 1.1 to add waste factor. And then that I'm going to then round up to the nearest whole number. And I can round up, I can round down. So this is telling me that the total cubic yardage multiplied by 1.1 to add a 10% waste factor, because concrete spills, and then rounded up to the nearest whole number will give me 3 cubic yards in this instance of concrete that I need. And I can plop that right in here. And I know that I charge $2.35 per cubic yard. This is the cheapest concrete you will ever buy. So it gets us to $7.05. And so that's another great example that we can do here. And we can also do more traditional material takeoffs as well. So for example, if I wanted to do framing, and in here I wanted to say, I need stud count. Let's say it's $4.35 per. And then what I can do here is I can take, excuse me, the wall length, and I can divide that by 16 to give me one stud every 16 inches. And then I can do a +1 on that because I want to have an extra stud, within the wall there. Or I can say, hey, take that and add 1. And I can take that whole thing and multiply it by 1.2. 1.2 for, again, a 20% waste. And I can take that whole thing and then also round up to the nearest whole number. So I need 339 studs in this instance, and these are rough numbers. Obviously, you guys know these actual equations a little bit better than I do, but this is essentially giving me, with the 450 linear feet of wall I had, doing 16-inch off-center spacing and adding in an extra stud just to kind of cap it at the end, and then adding in a 20% waste factor for the fact that there's going to be some really janky studs. I've done a lot of construction of cabinetry and things and furniture. I know janky studs. So what we've got is a total of 339 studs needed. And so you can see that this can be done with so many different in so many different ways for traditional square footage based takeoff, concrete pad, cubic yardage calculations, stud counts. You can do this for drywall or for painting or other things like that as well. Labor, if you want to, where you could take the total number of man hours and then divide that by the total number of hours per day and number of people. There's just a lot of really great stuff that can be done here. And we have all of the same formulas that can be done in a traditional Excel spreadsheet with round up and round down and round to the nearest whole number or the nearest tenth. All of those if-then statements can be done as well, where you could say, hey, I want to do this if it's above or this number, but this is my default if it's below, and we can always talk about those different scenarios as well. But as you can see, there's a lot that can be done with parameters and formulas in Ressio. Be on the lookout for a webinar related to this topic and all sorts of other resources as well, and let us know if you have any questions.